Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works. And it is Father's Day 2024, which means it's time for our annual Father's Day special. And I know what you're thinking. Wow, Father's Day? I think you've only had 2 videos since Father's Day last year. Yes, we've had about 10 months in which I haven't done any posting. And I apologize for that. Mostly all is well. We will get into the details of what's been going on for the last year later on in the video. But basically, my head just wasn't in model building. But what I really want to get into is what this year's Father's Day project is going to be, and essentially, once again, like a lot of the other previous projects for Father's Day, it's something that my father built many years ago. And this project he built in, I want to say, 1982, 1983. I know it was when we lived in Petawawa that he built it. And like a lot of his projects, it got maybe about 90% complete, and he lost interest in it. And he kind of never really had it on public display. He had it in his shop and all that sort of thing. I think it was actually probably more in his home office he had it. So, as many of you will know, my father passed away in 2017. So this is 7 years since he's passed away. And I think it's our 8th annual Father's Day special. Kind of hard to believe that I've been doing the channel for that long. Although, once again, the last year, there has been a whole lot on the channel. So, without further ado, we're going to go into the other workshop. This is my main hobby bench right here. And then in my big workshop, I've got 2 other spots that I work on models. And also what we're trying out is this camera right here. And I don't know how well it's going to work. It's not a genuine GoPro. It is an Osmo. We purchased it last summer, and I just love this little camera. For what we've been using for, I really love this camera. How well it's going to do inside for model videos, I don't know. I suspect when I edit, I'm going to be cropping a whole pile of crap away because it has such a wide field of vision. But this camera we purchased for Ontario ship chasers, and the time lapses we've been able to take are just amazing, and the Steadicam feature that it has a rock solid mode, which is just amazing. So anyway, yeah, for Ontario ship chasers, we love this, and I would like to start using it for Dan's Model Works, mostly because using my cell phone, which is what I had been doing for forever, that was one of the small things that went wrong in the last year, and I just found that the cell phone cameras weren't working too well anymore. So let's see how this one works. Okay, so let's go into the other workshop. So this very dusty specimen is what this year's project is going to be. And it is MPC's The General. And it was built by my father, like I said, I want to say 82, 83. Maybe it was 1981. I don't know. In that ballpark. And you folks have seen this before. We featured it on the channel when I reviewed a new edition of this model. And I'll just insert that footage right now, not of the review, but of the box. All right, this is the General that I bought. I want to say 8 years ago, 9 years ago, because it was before my father passed away. And this was featured in the channel a few years ago, a review showing you guys what it was like. The kit obviously goes back, 30 odd, 40 years. And that's the first time that you guys saw my father's version of the kit. And I do have big plans for this. Who knows if we'll ever get to them. So, other than dusting it, what are we going to be doing? And yes, dusting it is on the list of things to do. The list of things that are going to be done. One of the first things is let's just... One of the things that's always bothered me about this model is the way these cylinder jackets go together right here. And there's a visible seam that runs right down the side of each of them, which is kind of terrible. And when my father built this, neither one of us, when we built models, and I mean, I was just in my teens, early teens, actually, I'd have to say, really knew much about model fillers and stuff like that. So this is something that, had my father built today, he probably would have puttied and sanded a couple dozen times to get it perfect. We have this string here for the bell. Needs to go into the cab. Let's see. We've got some other damage here. Oh, we've got a step that was hanging off and finally gave up the ghost. Inside the cab, the gangway. I have it somewhere. It never got installed. The drawbar never got installed between these two pieces. All there was is... you can see he's got the safety chain, but the drawbar never got installed. I'm not quite sure why. Something I think I would like to try, and I'm kind of surprised that he did not do it when he actually built it, was the ballast here between the ties is just molded in. And I think I would like to go to the hobby shop and pick up some actual ballast, that's the gravel, and I think I'd like to put that all in and around the ties. I think that would look better than what is here. Let's see. I'd pick out some of the other details, things like that. And the... I mostly like what he did with the wood in the tender. The only thing is, I'd like to give, especially the bark, I'd like to give that some panel wash, some Tamiya brown panel wash here. I think that would really make that pop. So not a lot of things, not a big long list of things to do. The biggest thing I'm going to have to kind of get on is getting to the hobby shop and getting some ballast, which I think I'm going to have to do tomorrow, because I've been thinking of doing this project for months now, but I just kept putting it off, and now we're only a week out. So yeah, that's the project. I've been debating about how to provide an update without being a talking head, which I think would be kind of boring. So I've decided to provide a life update while you guys watch me knock a couple layers of dust off the model. Mid-June of last year, I suffered a minor stroke while at work. So far as we can tell, there was no major permanent damage. Just for a period of 10 minutes or so, I forgot almost all of my vocabulary. It scared the crap out of the person I was talking to, and I wasn't too thrilled with it either. So off to the hospital I went via ambulance. At first they thought it was a blocked artery, and then a migraine, and then finally they said it was a potassium deficiency. Then a member of our family was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which brought a certain amount of stress for a while to our lives. Near the end of September, while getting takeout with one of my daughters, I had a fail Army Worth trip, and I managed to break 3 ribs on one side and 2 on the other. I mucked up my left arm, and I broke a toe. Don't ask. It takes talent. I was off work for about 5 weeks, but was really too sore to do any modeling. Still in a lot of pain, I returned to work early November to discover that the attitude at work was, "Don't worry, Dan will clean it up when he gets back." The last 7 months or so, I really haven't had the mental energy after work to be modeling. And the first week I was off with the injury, my last child moved out. You know, empty nest syndrome is real, folks. In short, I just haven't been feeling like doing any modeling. Ah, but what about Ontario Ship Chasers? You've done a bunch of videos there. Well, the process is different on this channel. I have to build something first. On Ship Chasers, we take a trip to the Welland Canal, we film some ships for a few days, and we have enough footage to make 15 or 20 videos. So, I can't make any guarantees, but I'm hopefully going to get it back into the modeling and we can get this channel going again. Thanks for your patience. I've got my start by doing some of the panel wash. Once again, that's this product right here. And I've been putting it mostly on the bark. And I've done these 2 rows right here. Haven't done the rest of it. I wanted to give this a chance to dry to see how I liked it. It doesn't make quite as much difference as I was hoping, but it certainly does look a little bit better. It shows more in real life than it does on the camera. And as well as that, if we move back, the base, this piece right here, of course, is supposed to be a nicely finished piece of solid wood. Really, it's plastic, but it does have wood grain molded into it. And once again, it's not super easy to see on camera, but this is the seam between one piece and the other. And this was just straight painted. This has had the panel wash put on it, and it has been bringing out the wood grain and making that pop a little bit more, the plastic wood grain. So that's basically what I was hoping for. So I'm going to continue doing the panel wash on here before I move on to the ballast on the base. Alrighty, I've used that Tamiya wash on the entire load of wood here. And you know what? I gotta hand it to my dad. This must have been a really frustrating thing to paint. Because, of course, anything that was the outer part of a cylinder, okay, that's bark. Anything that was straight had to be the inner part of the wood. This had to be up there with painting those containers on the container ship a year and a half ago. So, I think it does look a little bit better with the wash on it. And now it's time to move on to the next task. And that is, I've knocked a little bit more dust off of the, here we go. You can see the seam on the outside of the steam chests, the lagging that's around the cylinders. Now, there'd have to be a seam somewhere. But I don't ever remember there being a seam this prominently on the side. So, yeah, we're going to do what we can to clean that up. There is the other side. You can see, actually there's a couple of sink marks to the left, and you can see where the sprue attached. That's what I'm trying to say. You can see where the sprue attached. So we're going to be scraping that down, using a little bit of putty, and then we'll put some paint on it. Well, we've got step 2 done here. You can see I've got some putty on. And here's the other side. That's going to dry for a few hours. But I'm feeling better about it. So I am done putting my panel wash. No, it seems silly to call it panel wash, but that's what it is. But putting the wash on the wood grain here, and it looks a lot more like real wood now that there's some color differentiation. So the next task is going to be putting some model railroad ballast on the top here. And I think it should actually end up looking better just because it will come higher up on the ties. Generally, the gravel comes to the top of the ties. So I only have a few days, so I really need to get started on this particular part of the project. So I've applied glue and ballast up to about this point here, and I'm just working my way down. And all I'm doing is just using straight white glue. This is a big enough thing that, you know, I can just basically squeeze it right in and then spread it with a brush. Compared to doing ballast on N scale, which is very, very fiddly and tedious, this is a piece of cake. With N scale, you're always fighting to make sure you don't put too much down. With this, I'm going to be, you know, fighting to make sure that I get a nice thick coating that is opaque. I haven't decided if I'm going to put a dilute solution of white glue onto this later. I'm going to see how well it's just sticking using the white glue I'm putting down. I'm not adverse to putting down diluted white glue. I'm willing to do it. It's just a step I'd rather not have to do if I don't have to. You'll notice that I'm not putting the ballast all the way down to the edge of my wet glue. I'm kind of leaving a wet edge. And I'm just kind of smucking down the ballast down into the glue to make sure that it sticks. Now I'm going to extend down this way a bit and then reapply. Repeat ad nauseum. Don't worry, the tops of the ties are going to be clear once I take a brush and kind of clean it up, so you don't have to worry about that. So I am going with the dilute white glue. You can see I'm just eyedroppering it on here. Though it's still a heck of a lot easier than doing this in N scale. I did quickly groom the ballast before spreading the white glue, or the dilute white glue, on here. Hopefully my mixture is strong enough. Actually, it was too strong at first. There was too much white glue. I couldn't get it all to dissolve. So hopefully we are in the, as Adam Savage used to say, in the butter zone here. And all this is whatever your favorite, I guess the generic name is PVA glue. Whatever your favorite white glue is, plus a little bit of dish soap. Normally I use Ivory, but I didn't have any. I used Dawn. It doesn't kill geese. Sorry, it doesn't kill ducks. So, hopefully it's safe for plastic and ballast. So, but this is one of the biggest parts of this project, is getting this ballast on. So I'm glad I'm getting it done now. Alrighty, it has been 24 hours. And my dilute white glue solution seems to have set up pretty solidly. If I really try, I can knock off a couple of loose pieces, but this is on there. Like, if you were to bark your knuckles on that, you'd do some damage. So that is done. We can get it out of the way and continue on our restoration. Here you can see I've sanded the our steam chests. I don't think they're called steam chests. The outside of our cylinders. You can see I've done this side as well. We're going to put a little bit of black paint on there, get that taken care of. And as well, I just decided I was going to take the path of least resistance and go into my unbuilt kit in order to replace the parts on either side that are kind of gold plated, and they're going to go up there. I think that's something that's probably just best at this point, with only a day and a half left. Just grab those parts and install them. Now I've got paint on my cylinders here, and I think they look a whole lot better than they did. And as well as that, you can see I've got the replacement parts from my unbuilt model there. They're probably not connecting up the way they absolutely should, but I'm kind of having to work with what my dad did like well over 30 years ago. Plus things that were broken. The gangway has been installed, and all I did here was I put the tender in place, and then I installed the gangway at the angle that it wanted to be. And I still have to trim the end here. The string that was in place was just not behaving. It was all wiggly and everything like that. So I ended up putting a piece of stretch sprue in here, and it at least has a nice natural sag to it, like you would expect a rope or a string to have. So I'm going to be trimming the end of that. I could have gone really, really hog wild on this. I could have started breaking it apart and redoing stuff, especially with like the seams on the steam dome. But I don't think that would be fair. I wanted it basically to represent what my father had built many years ago, rather than what I would do with it now. So looking at the front of the tender here, you can see we've got the drawbar. Now there should be a hole drilled in it for a pin to go down, but when this thing is sitting here on the base and everything like that, there's no way you're ever going to see that there's not a pin going from the locomotive through the drawbar. What I really wanted to have is the representation of the drawbar going from the tender to the locomotive, as opposed to just the one chain like there was. So that's a huge improvement there. I reinstalled this step and the step on the other side. This handle had completely disappeared, so I fabricated a new one. And just a word on the lettering here. These are gold stick-on letters that my father had used. And what had happened, and I mean, I can still remember walking into his workshop area and him being so annoyed over the decals. And what had happened, and neither he nor I understood it at the time, was you can't put decals on flat paint. Or if you're going to do it, you need to put tons and tons of decal setting solution on it. And you're still going to have the film showing and looking absolutely horrible. Neither one of us understood that at the time. I mean, the proper way to have done it would have been to paint the tender gloss black, put those decals on, put a ton of decal setting solution on it to absolutely melt it on, and then hit it with a dull coat or something like that, and that would have looked amazing. Neither one of us knew that, 30, 35 years ago, so 35 years ago? I think we might be looking at closer to 45 years ago. So, because like I said, this was early 80s he had built that. So, anywho, that is what has been done here. And like I said, with more time, I probably could have broken everything apart and redone a bunch of stuff. But that wouldn't have been in keeping with the fact that this was his model. He built it. All I really wanted to do was just make a couple of small things, like I said, putting the ballast on here and installing a couple parts that had gone astray and some repairs. So we'll bring you back as soon as I get everything together here on the base. All right, it is Saturday morning, everybody. I've been home from work for maybe about 30 minutes now. Just putting everything back together again. You can see I trimmed my length of the stretch sprue there. And I wanted it to hang down low. I could have put a soldering iron next to it and it would have tightened it right up. But it's supposed to be a lanyard. It's supposed to be, somewhat loose. If it was some sort of a tension rod or something like that, or an antenna on an aircraft, no, you wouldn't want it drooping. But having said that we want it drooping, we want it to be a nice, reverse arc. We don't want what a piece of string, the original piece of string was, where it was just kind of all twisty and everything like that. So, it's always challenging to film very, very large objects. And, there's no point in even putting this on the turntable. But, it's kind of unnerving looking through the viewfinder of this particular camera, because there's a time delay. Because it has such a wonderful anti-shake to it. But at the same time, it means that what I'm seeing isn't what's really happening. So, just to recap, we've put a wash on the fuel load. I think that turned out pretty good. We glued some steps back on. We put the ballast on the bottom here. And coming back over here, you can see the cylinders now have a smooth jacket on them. The seam is gone. And I've put the parts from my unbuilt kit here in place. So, of course, if I ever get around to building mine, I'm going to have to scratch build those, but that's a problem for future Dan. I have no problem with giving that guy problems. So, otherwise, as you can see, we keep overrunning my background here. But I feel good at having restored the damage that this accumulated, and not just in my possession. It had a lot of damage during the time from the time that my father finished building it to the time he died. It was packed up a lot, bits and pieces got knocked off and things like that. As you can see, we're still missing some flagpoles here that should be on either side of the headlight. But I'm happy with it. And it's my way of honoring my father for Father's Day, is restoring another one of the models that he built. And this can go back on display upstairs. And if you're wondering where it's displayed, it's actually displayed in the bathroom on my ground floor. And if you're thinking, what? You're displaying it in your bathroom? That is exactly the kind of place my father would have displayed it, is in a bathroom. And it means that I look at it probably 3 times a day, 4 times a day. So being reminded of my dad and how much I love him that many times a day, I think is pretty good. So once again, I apologize for the long drought in videos. I hope you guys enjoyed this quickie restoration of my father's model of the General. And until next time, just keep on modeling.
Sit, Indy, sit. Good dog.